Good morning. A little better. Good morning.
Good morning.
Almost there. Good morning.
Good morning.
Three of you are excited. I'm happy with the three of you. We'll rock with three. That's okay. We got a good choir though. Yeah? There you go. Come on. I like them. That's a good thing. A couple weeks ago, they sung that song, and I asked them if they could do that song again because it was the inspiration for what I want to preach on today. And today, I want to talk about a concept that, and hopefully you can visualize maybe what's going on in your mind. It's a concept that I'm trying to learn, unsuccessfully a lot of times, but trying to nonetheless. But how many of you know God's good? Like real good. Like better than you think. Like the goodness that you thought is not even close to how good He really is. And so He's got a table for us. And it's spread with so many good things, right? A few good things that He's put on this table for us. Oh, so much I'm running over here. There's grace. There's mercy. There's love on this table. There's faith. Hopefully you can see all these. Song about it, right? Healing at the table of the Lord. There's peace. Some of you may forget this because you think you don't need it, but really you do. Favor. There's joy. Strength. You get the point here? A lot of good stuff. There's your future. Security. There's confidence. There's freedom. There's safety. There's forgiveness at this table. There's acceptance at this table. So God's got a table spread, right? Yes. That's just a little bit. I mean, God is too good to put on a table, but I try to pick some of the ones that I try to remind myself of often. But there's a table spread out for us, right? Amen. Everything you need right there. Amen. Everything you could possibly want is there. Corinthians puts it like this. It says, as it is written, eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them that love Him. You can't comprehend all that God has for you. You can't fit it into what you think, because you think what you need is your current situation. But God sees so much deeper than what you can see. So He's already provided every single thing that you could possibly need for the future. For now, for the future, for the past, doesn't matter. It's all there for us. But do you believe that God has all this stuff ready for you? Do you believe it's for you? Do you really believe that God has joy for you? Because you're miserable right now, right? There's times in your life you don't even know what joy looks like. Does it mean that it's off the table? Maybe you're feeling weak. But there's strength right here. Because what I feel isn't necessarily what God has, right? Because we can't go on our feelings, we have to go on His Word. And His Word tells me that there's strength that He has for me. Maybe I don't feel loved, but God said that, I gave my Son for you. I've got love for you. But you don't feel it, right? Not all the time. Do you believe it's for you? Hebrews tells us this. It says, without faith it is impossible to please God. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is what? A rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. Why do you seek God? A lot of people seek God because He's a punisher if you don't. But I can tell you, if you can learn that verse, it will change how you view God. To know that I'm seeking Him because He knows what's best for me. And I may be going through hell right now, but there's a good purpose in whatever I'm going through, right? Yes. Because He's a rewarder. Most people give up before they get the reward, right? Amen. life gets hard, life gets tough, they don't see the point, they don't see the purpose in the pain. And so they give up and they lose and they forfeit the rewards of God because they don't make it to that point. So everything you need in life is set at this table. 2 Peter says it like this. According to his divine power hath given us all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of him that had called us to glory and virtue. All things that deal with life, your natural side, and godliness, your spiritual side. Everything you need is at that table. Look at the tense of this verse. According to his divine power hath given. What tense is that in? Past. God's already given what you need. Amen. A lot of times, see, we don't get that, right? Because we're not experiencing it right now. We think that God's got all these things, but it might be off in the future for us. He says, I've already given it to you. Amen. Right? It's already been done. So a lot of times we're waiting on something that God's already given. Amen. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible how we get how it comes to us sometimes? Already given to him. But you know, a lot of times people will never experience this. They won't. They know that God's good, right? But they'll walk around this table and they'll see how good God is because they'll see God blessing somebody else, God redeeming somebody else, setting them free. They'll see the peace that somebody else has. And you'll walk around this table and you'll say, man, God sure is good, but, you know, I got a past. Do you believe God can be good to you?
Yes.
And all the mixed up craziness of you, do you believe that this is for you? Because it doesn't matter if I preach about this being for you, if I feel like it's for you, how much I want it to be for you. If you don't believe it, you'll never experience the peace and the freedom and the strength and the mercy and the grace and forgiveness and security. No matter how much somebody wants that for you, you got to know that it's for you. Amen. You got to get to that point in your walk to say, you know what? I want to sit at the table of the Lord. Yes. And no matter what you've been through, no matter what your past is, no matter what mixed up feelings you have, no matter what you think about yourself, it does not disqualify you from your seat. Amen. There's no requirements for this seat. Actually, there's one. Go to that next verse. It says, blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. The one requirement that you take your seat is that you're hungry. It doesn't say that once you get your life together, you can experience this. It doesn't say that, you know what, once you kind of get over your past, you can experience this because, see, here's your future. This is where it lies. So the only requirement you have to take your seat is that you're hungry. And if you're hungry, you're going to be filled. A lot of times people don't think they're good enough to sit at the table of the Lord. But a lot of times people will believe that and they'll sit here because, you know, we come to church and we sit, right? So we'll sit at the table of the Lord. But a lot of times we don't do anything further than that, right? It takes a little more action on our part to get this. So they'll come every Sunday, right? And they sit at the table of the Lord and all this stuff is spread out before them. And then they get up and they leave. And then I'll come back next week. We'll sit at the table of the Lord. All this stuff being sung and preached about what God has for us. And then they get up and they leave. And then they say things like, I'm not being fed. Are you not being fed or are you not eating? Because there's a difference. It doesn't say wait for somebody to come and serve you. Go to that next verse. Oh, taste and see. You taste and see that God is good. So is God good? Absolutely. Better than you can ever think. The other night, me and the boys, we go eat, right? And we're at Moe's barbecue. It was Elijah's pick because he had a good week at school, so I'll let him pick on Saturday. And so he said, I want Moe's barbecue. I said, okay, let's go to Moe's barbecue. And so we're sitting at Moe's. I order them stuff that I know that they're going to love, right? Because they eat it all the time. And they're going to split a platter. Well, I look over and Micah is just smashing it. I mean, as fast as he can. He's got turkey hanging out of his mouth. He's got corn in this hand and macaroni in this hand, just as fast as he can go. He don't miss a meal. Well, Elijah's over here and he's getting distracted, right? He's all over the place. He's playing with his food. I don't like this. I don't like that. And I said, okay, this is your chance to eat. I'm not fixing anything else when we get home. So you can imagine what happened when we get to the house. Micah is satisfied. He's sitting there watching his Buc-ee's and ready to go to sleep, right? Well, Elijah, I'm hungry. I want something else. He wasn't satisfied because he didn't eat. A lot of times, you ever met people like that? They just aren't satisfied. Always looking for something else. Here for a little bit, there for a little bit. They're never satisfied because they never truly ate at the Lord's table. Amen. You remember what Jesus said to the woman at the well? He said, if you drink of this water, you're never going to thirst again. Why? Because it satisfies you. David said, you satisfy my soul. If I dine at this table, I don't need anything else. I can go home and watch Buc-ee's and go to sleep. Be excited about it, ready for the next minute, the next day, right? I love his little heart. It's cool. But there again, there's a lot of times where we get to this table and we're not experiencing in our lives what God says we could have. Because what we don't understand is that there are more guests at this table. There's more than just you sitting here, right? And these aren't good guests. These are bad guests. These are the kind you don't really want to be around, right? Those people. The people that show up early, leave late, never bring anything, right? Those people. So we'll introduce you to some of these guys. So insecurity takes his seat. Unforgiveness takes his seat. Anxiety. Gonna sit right there. Doubt. Fear. Anybody have this one? Me too. Told you, not successful a lot of times for me, but worry sits right there. Your past. Because, right, past never misses a meal. It's always going to tell you how bad you are. I'm running out of room. But we got more. Condemnation. Your weaknesses. Because we have plenty of those, right? I do. Like I told you, this is my table. Your table might look a little different. Entitlement. This is one I've fought with my whole life. It sits at the front. I'll be done here in a minute. Some depression. Self-righteousness. There's more at this table. Chaos. Hate. There's confusion. It's not good enough. And brother, bad attitude. because he's always showing up too. So, why are we not experiencing everything that the Lord has for us? Go to that next verse. As you're sitting here, the table's prepared, but it's in the presence of your enemies. So why are you not eating? What we can do, though, and what we have a tendency to do, and really, if you can get to this point, well, I'm out of breath carrying a chair. Fighting battles, right? So, if we can get to the point in our spiritual walk, if you can grow to this point, it's awesome. If the enemy's trying to take something from you, you smack their hands, right? Because you can say to yourself, this is just an attack. I'm just being attacked. This is just the enemy trying to steal my joy. So you can't do that, right? But what happens to us a lot of times? We get our spoon. Instead of eating, we feed our enemy. Right? We will feed the enemy. All right, how do I do that? Somebody hurt me. Right? So we grab our spoon and say, you know what? I'm going to eat this forgiveness because I don't really want to, I don't want that to develop in my heart. Instead, where's unforgiveness? Right here. We take our spoon. I can't believe they did that to me. Take another dip, right? I trusted them. Take another dip. I hope somebody makes them hurt the way they hurt me. Now, these are things you're never going to say out loud. But it's what's up here. And before you know it, your forgiveness is forfeited. You want strength, right? But you keep talking about how bad you are and about how weak you are. And you got this problem and this problem. Before you know it, you forfeited your strength. Where at? You got your confidence, right? Before you know it, you've given your confidence to your insecurities. Your future, you keep talking about your past. God could never do this. God could never save me. God can't forgive me. You can't really forgive yourself, right? So you forfeit your future because you won't let go of your past. And so before we know it, we're not eating out of anything because we're feeding it one spoon at a time to everything else. How are we doing this? How are we forfeiting what God has for us? Go to that next verse, I think. Like I said, this is what goes on in my mind. Maybe not yours, but mine. It says, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Where are these strongholds at? Next verse. Casting down imaginations, everything that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, still up here, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. How do you fight your battles? You filter your thoughts. Now, that's crazy to think, sometimes we don't even understand what we're doing at the time that we're doing it, right? We don't understand that we sit here and we say, God, how can you do this? How is this going to work? How is this going to happen? And before you know it, we've given our faith all to our doubts. And so we're asking God, bless me with this, bless me with that. And the whole time he's saying, look, it's already prepared for you. You're giving it away. So we're giving it away by our thoughts that we have in order to bring those into captivity. Every single thought. It's how you fight. I told you, this is more of a concept than it is a shout. But if you can apply this to your life, it will change forever. I'm telling you. A couple of years ago, because it's really about your spiritual appetite. A few years ago, I got to a weight I really didn't like. I didn't want to be that weight, so I went to the owner of the gym that I go to and asked him. I said, what can I do? I thought maybe he would show me a few extra workouts or something to do. You know what he told me? Keep a food log. And so I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, dude, you're an owner of a gym. I need some help doing something, and you're going to tell me to keep a food log. Because he told me you can't outwork a bad diet. And a lot of times we just try to volunteer for this, volunteer for that. What's your diet look like? What does your spiritual intake look like? Imagine if you kept a log of your thoughts, right? That'd be scary. That would terrify me to keep a log of my thoughts. But what enemies are you keeping fed? The Bible says bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. If something runs across your mind that goes against what he said about you, for you, or to you, disregard it. It's not of him, right? Because these enemies, they're not silent. And I don't know if you've been around kids. I'm sure most of you have. But when they're hungry, they're screaming, right? And so we sit here in the presence of our enemies, and they're not just sitting there waiting patiently and quietly until we feed them, right? Or to be fed. They're screaming. They're talking. They're talking to you. Because hungry people are, they're wanting fed, right? And so we're sitting here, and they're talking, and you got to know the difference. I was praying the other day, and God kind of spoke to my heart. What's one thing that I would want for my kids spiritually? And that's a hard question to ask, It's a hard question to answer. And I got to thinking for a little bit, but I think if I could pick one thing to teach my boys, it's how to hear God's voice above all others. How to know the difference between God's voice and the enemy's voice, because it's very subtle sometimes. Remember Eve, one word. Because if you don't know the difference, the enemy can smooth talk you out of everything that God's got for you, thinking that it's God's will, when in fact it is not. This is God's will, for you to be full of faith, for you to be full of forgiveness. Do you have confidence to know he has created you in a fearfully and wonderfully way, that you be strong and courageous? He read about that in Joshua all week. He wants to give you a future. Quit giving it to your enemies. Quit letting the enemy run rampant in your mind, because you forfeit what God has for you when you do that. Now you may be here today and you think, I've given it all away. I've given all my blessings away. Everything that I had, everything that was on that table that God had for me, I've given it away. But you're in luck, because the table gets reset every single day. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday. Today you have an opportunity to dine at the table of the Lord. Look at what Lamentation says. For this I recall to my what? Next verse. Did I not put that on there? There it is. This I recall to my mind. Therefore I have hope. You get your mind right. You get your hope right. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. Every day you have what you need set before you. You remember the children of Israel, right? They're in the desert. God gave them manna every single day. They were to take that day what they needed. If they tried to store it for the next day, it would spoil. They needed what they had, or they had what they needed for that particular day. They couldn't go on what they had yesterday. They couldn't go on what they had last week, last month, last year. It had to be that day. Everything that you need to make it through today is there for you. Don't try to store it up. Don't take it. It's up to us to decide to grab our seat at the table. Jesus said it like this. He said, give us this day our daily bread. Whatever you need today, know that God's already supplied it, right? It starts with him. The first is, the Lord is my portion. What are you feeding that you should be starving? You starve it, it goes away. You feed it, it gets stronger. Filter your thoughts with the mind of Christ, right? Anything that goes against what he said, what he spoke, and what he said about you, for you, to you, disregard if it goes against that. We're going to get our praise team to come and sing for us today. Like I said, I hope that this has helped you, because this gives you a little insight into what maybe is going on in your mind. If you can win this battle, everything that the Lord's table is for yours.